Of all the tourists that came to Britain last year, 97% of them didn't visit Yorkshire. What's wrong with them? Coming up this week, we find out how this region's trying to fight London's dominance and why the Tour de France could be the greatest weapon in its armoury.
We've got everything really. All we need is somebody to come and appreciate it.
Tommy's back with his travel gadgets. We harness his destructive side.
But if you go around whacking against walls, you could end up breaking it. I didn't that time.
Our animated travel tales come from Romania, with an unfortunate case of mistaken identity. And we go clubbing with the retro ravers of Spain's Balearic Islands. Some of the UK's most beautiful landscape is in Yorkshire. And one of the best ways to arrive is by rail. Steam trains still sometimes run on these old lines, and it's dead easy to get to for foreign tourists, just a few hours out of London.
Any tickets from Dens, please? Thank you very much. We're very lucky today, actually. It's absolutely fantastic day.
Well, you're saying lucky today, isn't it like this every day?
It's not. I have to admit, it's not like this every day. But if you choose to come on the Settle to Carlisle line, and it is quite misty, that's the atmosphere.
So why is it only 3% of international visitors to the UK bother coming here? Now, for most British people, this area is known as being wild and beautiful, and for two famous and huge national parks. But that message isn't getting around, and that's why Yorkshire is pinning its hopes on another form of travel, one with fewer wheels. Bikes. Next weekend, the grand départ of the Tour de France will leave Yorkshire's biggest city, Leeds, bound for its smaller, more peaceful neighbour, Harrogate. On its way, the peloton will pass through some extraordinary countryside. Organisers reckon around 3.5 billion people around the world will be watching the race, a gold-plated opportunity.
There'll be a lot of people around Europe and around other parts of the world who will maybe have heard of Yorkshire but not know what Yorkshire is, and so when they get to see a sort of 10-hour television advert of the great county of Yorkshire, I think they'll have their eyes open to see how beautiful the county is.
Do you think part of the problem and the reason why you don't get as many international tourists coming to Yorkshire is because of the cost? Because it's quite expensive to get here on the train.
If you book it on the day, you're going to pay the most, the highest price. You're going to get the most expensive ticket, and we need to make it possible to say do through ticketing with Eurostar and then a train company straight through to Yorkshire. At the moment, you've then got to go and print your ticket off in London, and so there's things like that we need to make it a lot easier, and there's things that the government can help with from that point of view.
Standard prices from the capital can start at £13 or around $20 if you're lucky, but walk-up fares can cost a couple of hundred. It's almost impossible to fly direct from outside Europe, so many potential visitors pass through London first. In most cases, that's where they stay. That means some of the most popular parts of England struggle to attract foreign arrivals, with figures of only about 2 or 3% of the total. Sucking in visitors from miles around, many fear London's becoming something of a tourism black hole.
One finger, one finger, and then the second finger on now. That's it.
The tour of infinite possibility in a back room in Otley. The guys leading this workshop, Hope and Social, are the frontmen of Yorkshire's cultural festivities. They're from around the UK, but have found a home here and are quickly becoming a common sight in the region's pubs and clubs.
How am I going to move my fingers there? You're having a laugh.
We lost you.
The Yorkshire Festival has used music, dance, drama and sculpture as a sideshow to the tour. and there are events and exhibitions planned throughout the summer.
I mean, it all sounds fantastic. Do you think there is, if someone came on holiday to Yorkshire, there's enough culture, there's enough things to do to sustain a holiday?
How long for? 2 months?
Oh,
Yeah,
that long?
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was saying recently that because I've got 2 kids, and there isn't a day where you couldn't do something different if you wanted to. You know, you could just go and do something different every day of the year, and you still have things left to do.
Yeah. Wow. Like, just think about your day, the stuff you've done today, and you're stopping in Leeds. Yeah. So you've been up in the wilds. You've been on this kind of one of the oldest train lines like in the world. You've seen all this beautiful countryside. You've come here to find some art,
Learn how to
add some culture. You're going to go back to Leeds. There's a possibility you might go for one of the best cocktails in the world, at one of the top 10 cocktail bars like in the whole world.
Okay, nice.
And what's more, they reckon if Yorkshire had competed as its own country in the 2012 Olympics, it would have come 12th. And they've been sporty in these parts for ages. In 1958, this man became the first Brit to win a stage of the Tour de France. He was already the first Brit to complete the whole thing. At the age of 83, Brian Robinson lives close to the 2014 route and of course is still in the saddle. He's looking forward to the exposure.
It's already around the world. I talked to a guy from Canada. He said, we see nothing on television but Yorkshire these days. So that's a good sign, and we haven't even got there yet. So when all those television cameras, which from over 100 countries are focused on Yorkshire, that can't be a bad thing, can it really?
That'd be amazing.
The roads here have come in for some criticism. French cyclist Marcel Kittel described them as very dangerous, particularly where they're narrow and bordered by stone walls. But for Brian, there's no better setting.
We've got such a varied countryside. We've got the canal system, we've got the rivers, we've got seaside, we've got the mountain tops, everything. I mean, I've ridden all my life around this district from being 14, so I know it pretty well, and it takes some beating really.
So expect to see lots of bikes if you come here in the next couple of years, and cheap rental schemes aren't hard to find, but watch out because it's hilly round here and the terrain is tough. And here's a few other things you might need to know if you're visiting Yorkshire. Don't believe the stereotype that English food is terrible. There's some great local stuff in Yorkshire, the home of Wensleydale cheese and all kinds of cakes. But for something a bit spicier, you could try Bradford's famous curry mile. If it's a last-minute decision to travel, you might find it cheaper to drive from any of the UK's major cities. Try to avoid public holidays as the roads are often single carriageway and can get congested. There are 4 big sculpture venues in Yorkshire, which have branded themselves confusingly the Sculpture Triangle. Despite the geometric absurdity, there's lots to see there, and they're all within a 30-minute journey of each other. Next up, more of your animated travel tales. This one's from Sarah Papperley from New Zealand.
The lonesome traveller blues hit when I was halfway through a 4-month tour of Eastern Europe. As anyone who has travelled alone can tell you, it starts to wear you out in pretty typical ways. You're lonely, exhausted, you just want a home-cooked meal. But happily, my Romanian friend had given me her mother's address and encouraged me to visit. When I arrived in the heart of Erie, Transylvania, I set out to find the right apartment. But the Soviet blocks all looked the same, an old, daunting mess of grey cement. Eventually, I settled on one apartment in a row of hundreds. I knocked on the door gently, anticipating a lot of our encounter to be lost in translation. A kind, older woman answered, and through a mixture of mimed movements and enunciated English, I explained that I was her daughter's friend. She received me with a big grin, quickly ushering me inside. A little girl, who I assumed was my friend's sister, was also inside. We all sat down to drink tea, watch Romanian soap operas, and share homemade cake. The apartment was really cosy and full of lamps, souvenirs, and crochet throws. I understood almost nothing of what was happening, but soap operas are pretty much the same in every language. I also must have wolfed down my cake because my friend's mum quickly offered to go buy food for dinner. She put her coat on and slipped out, leaving me with the little girl. When she got back, she went to work making a genuine Romanian feast of hearty soup, meat and polenta. Throughout the meal, we laughed and continued to talk in a muddled mix of hand signals. After about 5 hours, my host pulled out some old photo albums. I looked forward to seeing potentially embarrassing photos of my friend as a little girl. But as the pages turned and we passed an endless array of husbands, aunts, uncles and children, I began to have a sinking feeling that these were not my friend's relatives. I hadn't seen one picture that looked like her. My mouth went dry and my heart beat faster. I was in the wrong apartment. To make matters worse, the woman and the little girl began pulling out a mattress for me to sleep on. I panicked and stiffened on the couch, unsure of how to make a quick exit without being rude. In my best gesturing, I explained that I already had a hotel booked. I thanked them profusely and made a hasty retreat, too embarrassed to linger. They waved a warm goodbye and I set off into the concrete Soviet jungle. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the apartment I should have visited and couldn't believe I'd mixed the numbers up. As I slinked off into the night, I couldn't shake the image of that sweet little girl asking her mother, "Who was that woman?" Her mother's inevitable reply, "I have absolutely no idea."
Now for your weekly roundup from around the world of travel. Dozens more places have just been added to UNESCO's list of World Heritage Sites. The destinations this time included Botswana's Okavango Delta, the Grand Canal in China, and the ancient Incan Capac Nang Road network, which goes through 6 South American countries. Late night dancing might soon be allowed again in Japan. The government there is considering relaxing the rules. Now, not many people know that dancing's only allowed until midnight at clubs that have a special license. In recent years, there have been police raids against venues that ignore the ban. And finally, it's got volcanoes, sand, and almost guaranteed sunshine. But now people heading to Tenerife in the Canary Islands should also be greeted with a smile. The island's tourism corporation has come up with a scheme called Tenerife Buena Gente. The aim is to encourage locals to be nicer to tourists. Still to come here on the Travel Show. Coming up, we head to the party island of Mallorca to rave with the over 50s who appear to be the new kids on the block.
No.
She's not going to bungee.
I'll watch her, but I won't be going on it.
She's going to the phone party.
The Travel Show, your essential guide wherever you're heading.
Here on the Travel Show, we've tested stuff that's solar powered, hand powered, and even fire powered. But my first one today is a little bit different. It takes its energy from a scientific reaction. Let's take a look.
The Brunton hydrogen reactor powers your device via USB.
Okay, so the lab coat and the goggles might be a bit much, but I always wanted to be a scientist.
You plug in the USB and screw in the hydrogen cylinder, and that will then react with the oxygen in the atmosphere to produce electricity.
You'll be able to hear that in just a second. There you go.
Each core has the capability to charge your phone 3 times. Once they're empty, you can take them to an outdoor shop to be refilled.
Now there are quite a few products out there that will give you backup power for your devices, but what I like about this one is it uses the natural elements around you, which is kind of cool because you know if you're in the middle of nowhere, then you'll always be able to charge your mobile phone. However, if you are going on a long trip, then you will need quite a few of these. Check these out, wireless headphones that sync via Bluetooth, so you can listen to music or take a phone call, but without using your ear.
The Aftershokz Blues uses bone conduction technology to transfer sound waves directly into the inner ear.
You use the button at the side to play music or to receive phone calls, and then the vibrations travel through your skull so you can hear the sound.
People around you might be able to hear some of the sound too, so these aren't ideal if you're somewhere quiet, like an overnight flight.
But imagine if you are on a city tour, perhaps you're going for a run or you're on a cycle ride and you need to keep your wits about you on a safety level. Then something like this allows you to listen to your music at the same time. It's the best of both worlds. Ooh. Ooh. When you're chilling out on a beach, you need to be wary about how much UV you're exposing your body to. However, on a day like this in London, I don't think I need to be so cautious. But if I did have the sun beating down on me, then something like this could be quite handy.
The Netatmo June bracelet has inbuilt UV sensors and syncs with your phone via Bluetooth. You'll need to download the app and then input your skin type and whether or not you're wearing sun cream, and then you can track how much UV you're exposed to.
Okay, so in weather like this, it's only showing 0.2 on the reading on the phone. And actually, because there isn't a display on the bracelet itself, you have to keep the two together, which can restrict its use. Plus, this isn't waterproof, so you can't take it in the sea or in the swimming pool. But we all know how important it is to be safe in the sun, and something like this can help you track how much UV you're exposed to. Oh, one other thing. It's actually designed for ladies, but I think I pull it off quite well. Thought I'd buy everyone in the office a nice bottle of Merlot. They'll like that. Oh, that'll be ruined. Or is it?
The Vigo wine carrier is made from a resistant foam that turns into a protective shell on impact.
The makers of this claim it can protect the bottle from typical drops. But if you go around whacking it against walls, you could end up breaking it. I didn't that time. But imagine you brought back a lovely bottle of wine from your holidays. Then having this can add a layer of protection in your suitcase. Okay, for the final test, let's see if it can withstand this. No problem.
To end this week, we're heading to the Mediterranean Sea and the Spanish resort island of Mallorca. Greg Mackenzie's been to find out why clubbing there is no longer just for the young.
Magaluf is Mallorca's best-known resort, situated on the southwest coast of the island. It's been attracting holidaymakers for more than 40 years. Some say the recipe here is simple: palm tree dotted beaches and plenty of sunshine. And of course, for those who like to party, Magaluf is always happy to oblige. But it's not just teenagers and young adults having all the fun.
According to one travel company, the over 40s are flocking back to places like Ibiza, Ayia Napa and here in Magaluf, where they're fast becoming the new kids on the block.
Broadway Travel says it's seen an increase of 38% of older people booking package holidays through them to clubbing hotspots. This is one of the island's newest venues, catering for the slightly older market. And although there's no age limit on the door, This is a favourite haunt for more mature clubbers willing to spend that little bit extra for a sophisticated clubbing experience.
I kind of grew up listening to the music, as did a lot of my mates and stuff, and I decided it'd be a really nice brand to bring over to Mallorca. This side of the island's got a bit of a bad reputation with the history and the kids and all that kind of thing, and we're just trying to lift the area, lift the venue, and make it a little bit more for the adults.
And would you say it's working?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, it's fantastic. The age group we're getting is between 30 to 55, 60-year-olds. They're coming in for the day, they're coming in during the evenings. That's working really well.
Magaluf, which attracts 3 million visitors yearly, has seen its fair share of badly behaved tourists. But the local council are keen to clean up this image by appealing to all age groups.
No, it's not just for youngsters. I say you can have it as lively as you want, or you can have a nice quiet night if you want. It's something for everybody.
Yeah, we come here because we're young at heart, and the nightlife, of course, friendly beaches, friendly people.
Where are you going tonight?
Maybe BCM.
And what's that for people that don't know?
It's in a big nightclub, and I'm going to go on the bungee.
Mum, you've got to go.
No.
She's not going on the bungee.
I'll watch her, but I won't be going on it.
She's going to the phone party.
Word of the travel show's visit to Magaluf soon spread, and I was invited to speak live on Radio 1 Mallorca about our trip. The station reaches more than 500,000 holidaymakers and British expats across the Balearic Islands.
We have a guy from BBC TV, The Travel Show, the one that you just mentioned a minute ago, that has something ridiculous like 80 million viewers a week to their programme. And they're here in Mallorca, so can I introduce you to Greg, and perhaps he can tell you why he's here.
There's an increase, let's say, in the over 40s, reminiscing and rekindling their youth by coming back out to Magaluf and Ayia Napa.
Just have a look around you.
As the age of the average clubber rises, the demand for more luxurious accommodation is also increasing because many over 40s have the disposable income to go up market. Gordon Phillips is a club director who's planning to move into the hotel business next season. He's been on the island for 20 years.
In the last year or two, we've noticed a very large increase in, especially early and late season, in the older generation. Whether they're reminiscing their youthfulness or I think the travel industry has helped this to happen because they've changed now where it's not, you don't have to be 7 or 14 nights here. You can actually choose to come 1 night, 3 nights, 5. You can package your own holidays if you will.
This is the biggest nightclub on the island and draws on average 4,000 clubbers a night. And Gordon admits it's always going to have a young crowd, but now it's also about offering the older crowd a similar experience. And for those caught up in the holiday bubble, savouring the escapism that a change of scenery and anonymity of being abroad offers, clubbers who grew up in the 80s can relive the excitement of their youth all over again.
That's all for this week, but join us next week when I'll be in Rome putting my green fingers to the test in an exclusive behind-the-scenes tour of the Pope's Gardens and meeting the people who make it look so spectacular. What about this bit here?
Ma lo lascerei.
No?
No.
No
Ci
more.
penso.
That's next week. In the meantime, you can follow us in real time by signing up to our social media feeds, and all the details on how to do that are on your screens now. But from me, Adir Depitan, and all the Travel Show team here in Yorkshire, it's goodbye.